So we're putting on the mind of Christ, and in many ways I shared with you, different little aspects of that, that the mind of Christ is one that loves silence and makes time for prayer. The mind of Christ is one who can sense. The mind of Christ is one who, in a certain sense, will never disconnect. The mind of Christ is one that is not afraid of diminishment. The mind of Christ is one that is open to, in a certain sense, be pushed that extra mile in letting go of something. And I could list a lot of other things that we talked about, but most of all, the mind of Christ knew what life was about and knew how to die. Knew how to die and faced it beautifully, and knew it was behind his mind all the time, as it isn't behind our minds all the times. We're going to die. We're like 40 hours closer to death than the time we came. That shouldn't be scary. That should be, I'm going to live life the best I can with the time that I have. I don't have the song with me right now, and I was looking for it, but one of my favorite Christmas traditions for Carl Arico is to watch the musical Scrooge with Albert Finney. If you ever have, how many have seen that? Honestly, that's a must every Christmas for me. That is a must. And Albert Finney plays the Scrooge. But after he went through those 3 nights of looking at his past, his present, and his future, which is a spiritual journey, his past, his present, his future, looked at the mistakes he made in judgment and everything, when finally he became aware of it, that he had squandered things and had made things he was too much the self, the center of everything else. He sings this wonderful song. I wish I had the words, but trust me, you can Google it. To begin again, to begin anew, that I might be more than I thought I could be, to live a life that's fuller now. If I could go through the thing, it's beautiful. I cry at that because that's conversion. That's conversion. And if you remember it, when he started throwing his money around and caring about everybody, how happy he was. He got rid of all the drapes in his house that were a mess and everything. Let the sunlight in, for goodness sakes. And there was that one wonderful, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. Okay, there's a wonderful scene when they're singing, "Thank you very much, thank you very much, da 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 da," and he's going along with them in his third visit of the ghost. He realized they're all saying thank you very much because he dropped dead. All of a sudden, it dawns on him, who's in that tomb? Who's in that coffin? They're all dancing. They're dancing on the coffin. He was so happy. Oh, yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Then they really saw what people thought. Do me a favor. Before Christmas, however you can get a film, if you don't have it, I think you can Netflix or whatever else and what have you. Please, Scrooge with Albert Finney, the musical. And as you're enjoying it, say a little prayer for me. Okay. All right? That's another song I'm going to break into. Say a little prayer for me. Okay. All right. Love is shown by mercy, and mercy blossoms with compassion. Love is shown by mercy, and mercy blossoms with compassion. Whenever you apply, I'm going to use that term, compassion, to an event, either towards yourself, another person, a nation, a group, a prayer group, your church, whatever it may be, you know you're in a transformational mode. You always wonder, how do I know that my life is being transformed? Well, one of the keys is when compassion comes to what you're dealing with. Doesn't matter what it is. But there's a sense you bring another dimension to what's going on in your life. And in the article that I gave you, I'll just run through it now. I was reading this morning, and it was so much better than what you're going to hear, but it'll be a nice remembrance. I was inspired by the last chapter in Henri Nouwen's book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, you know. And that last chapter really hit me. It's a very strong spiritual feeling on that. Because we're called to be the Father. Yes, in our lives, we're the younger son when we're the fixed point of reference and everything has to be about us. Yes, there's a period of our life when we're the older son who's self-righteous and lives their life by following rules and doing their obligations, but with no fire inside. And yet, what God is about is seen in the Father. The Father who was there on the hill waiting for His Son. The Father who gave up part of His security as an elderly person and gave it to the young one. The Father that had to deal with the Son who was very faithful, but in a certain sense didn't grow in his love for his dad. So much so that when he heard about the feast not being carried on properly, he went into a snit and wouldn't go in. I've often wondered what was happened the day after. Did the two brothers talk again? Did the younger brothers sometimes yearn to be back with the prostitutes? Poor prostitutes always get it. I mean, they're only doing their job, for goodness sake. And they get condemned every time for something, you know. No one talks about the one who's running the house and everything else, but the poor. And then the other one, you know, did he finally, in a certain sense, give of himself more generously, or did he once again, you know, just be self-righteous, if you would? Did he grow in his love for his dad, you know? But when we look at compassion, some of the things that Henri Nouwen brings out are so powerful. There's 3 ingredients for true compassion. And the first is the ability to grieve, to be touched emotionally. And that's why we talked about not being stuck on the surface level. Remember, we said move to the psychological and the spiritual level. I hope things move you. I will confess to you, I am sad. Sad in my gut of what's happening with this election. Yes. I cannot get it out of my system. Yeah. I was walking back and forth today, you know, trying to enjoy the scenery, but there was a dark cloud, at least as far as my perception, over what in God's name is happening in our country. I'm not going into the politics now. I'm talking about the spirituality of what's going on. And I feel that. I hope you feel there's something wrong. And I don't care who your candidate is. Each candidate, in a certain sense, is making us aware of that there's a cancer in our country that we haven't looked at. But divisiveness, them and us type of thing. And I feel that I can tell you feel it too. Make America strong. Yes, put back In God we trust, for God's sakes. As soon as we started watering that down, I know our religions didn't treat everybody properly. We did things for the slaves and the Indians, but we still believe that in God we trust, okay? You lose that, you lose actually the spirit of what we're about, for goodness sakes, at least as a country. God can be defined in so many different terms. 12-steppers have shown us that you can apply God as you understand it. But you say it, in God we trust. You know, stronger together. We already are a family of God, of brothers and sisters and so on. You lose sight of that in a certain sense, then there's them and us. So something's going wrong here. Tuesday we go to elect. Do you elect for? Do you elect against? You don't elect at all? It's a real, I don't know about you, but I don't know. Yeah. But what I do know, that when I look at this, the chalk mark, okay, this event, November 8th, I have to look at the fact of the blackboard. There's something wrong far beyond what's going on in this election. It's almost like we lost our soul. And the rest of the world, when you hear some of these commentaries and everything, they don't know what the heck's happening to us. And so I was, I did not preach on the second reading at Mass yesterday. And I wondered why, and I found out this morning in bed. Because it applies to this, and I'm going to just allow me to go to my, God bless these things. I know that they can be a problem. But I must step back for one moment. Don't make me forget what I'm talking about, the election. Must step back just for a moment.